Federal agent testifying about the inventory of stuff found at Diddy's Miami home, and it's kinky stuff and dangerous stuff. There's toys, there's bottles of lube, handcuffs. That's not illegal.
So a gentleman by the name of Gerard Gannon was the lead person from the Homeland Security Special Agent investigation at the home of Sean Combs in Miami. That was in March of 2024.
Inside Diddy's inner circle, a former Combs Enterprises employee who also worked as a personal assistant agreeing to take the stand against his former boss, but only after being granted immunity. So far, telling the jury it was his job to clean up the rooms after freak-offs.
The jurors saw the actual exhibit, so there were times where Mr. Cannon, Special Agent Gannon, was able to open up those plastic bags and show the jurors exactly what was found inside the home of Sean Combs.
I can't imagine it's thousands. I mean, you know, and I'm not really sure what the baby oil has to do with anything. I don't know where the number 1,000 came.
Baby oil, more than 1,000 bottles altogether.
The rapper's attorney telling all to TMZ as the outlet dives deep into the ongoing trial in their documentary.
I've been with him since 8 o'clock this morning, and it's about almost 3 o'clock now. He's just laser focused. He's engaged. He's helpful. He's confident. You know, we're going through our defense as we do every day.
When federal agents stormed Sean Diddy Combs' $48 million Miami mansion, they weren't just searching a celebrity's home. They were cracking open what could be one of the darkest scandals in modern music history. This wasn't a routine sweep. Homeland Security, armed with warrants and backed by months of testimony and surveillance, moved in with purpose. What they found behind those polished doors stunned even the most seasoned investigators. Hidden among the luxury and palm-lined privacy were disturbing clues, items that alone might seem bizarre, but together painted a picture far more sinister. There were weapons with scratched-off serial numbers, stashes of drugs, MDMA, cocaine, ketamine, and more.
Just because we want to have a good time.
Multiple safes broken into, drawers ripped open, closets ransacked, boxes of gun ammo and Grammy Awards.
Dozens of bottles of baby oil, sex toys, designer lingerie, and then a rubber duck. It sounds surreal, almost like satire, but it's all real, documented in official reports and backed by courtroom testimonies from people who say they witnessed things no one should ever be part of. This is no longer a rumor. This is a federal investigation, and it's only just begun. Because what was found in Diddy's home, that was just the beginning. And what happens next might expose the entire system. It was March 25th, 2024, when everything changed. At sunrise, Homeland Security agents arrived at Diddy's sprawling waterfront mansion in Miami's exclusive Star Island.
Just wrapped up. He's now on cross, but I want to tell you about some of the things that were talked about on the direct examination. So he was talking about baby oil, Astroglide. He talked about a situation. He was the advance guy. He would go into the hotel rooms and he would set up the rooms in preparation for the freak-off.
This wasn't a quiet knock at the door. It was a full-scale federal raid. Agents in tactical gear, black SUVs blocking the street, helicopters circling above. To the neighbors, it looked like something out of a movie, but to investigators, it was the climax of months of quiet buildup. What triggered the raid? According to insiders, it was a combination of witness testimonies, sealed court documents, and mounting pressure from previous civil lawsuits, most notably from Diddy's former partner, Cassie Ventura. Allegations of abuse, coercion, and trafficking had been swirling for months, but now authorities were ready to act. This wasn't just about accusations. It was about evidence, hard, physical proof.
We will find out, but it was a little bit more of the same in terms of what we've heard, but now the jurors were actually able to visibly see it. Throughout this time, when they're showing these drugs and whatnot, I'm looking at Combs' expression. He's pretty stoic.
The goal was clear: gather anything that could support charges of sex trafficking, racketeering, and unlawful drug distribution. And from the moment they entered the house, agents began documenting every room, every drawer, every secret. What they discovered over the next few hours would become the foundation of a case that could take down one of the most powerful figures in hip-hop. And they were just getting started. Once inside Diddy's Miami mansion, agents weren't met with luxury alone. They were met with evidence, and what they uncovered shocked even veteran investigators. In the guest house, they found a loaded .45 caliber handgun. In a separate room, disassembled AR-15 rifle parts with serial numbers intentionally scratched off.
Home are traditionally detained during raids, so they don't flee and so they don't destroy evidence.
The rapper's attorney calls it a witch hunt with an excessive show of force and hostility that led to a premature rush to judgment, adding Diddy will continue to fight every single day to clear his name.
Were tucked away in storage. These weren't just collectible items. Tampering with serial numbers is a federal offense, and the presence of multiple weapons raised immediate red flags about potential trafficking and safety violations. But it didn't stop there. In several locations throughout the mansion, authorities discovered drugs, lots of them. According to lab reports, there were controlled substances including MDMA, ketamine, cocaine, and Xanax. These weren't trace amounts. They were packaged, accessible, and often found alongside bizarre assortments of personal items. The most headline-grabbing find? A stash of sex toys, dozens of designer lingerie pieces, 25 bottles of baby oil, 31 bottles of Astroglide lubricant, and a rubber duck.
Open to a plea bargain.
Well, it's not up to me. It's up to Mr. Combs, and I don't see it happening.
Why?
Because he believes he's innocent. He believes he's innocent, and what's more, he believes that he needs to stand up.
Alone, these might be chalked up to eccentric tastes. But in the context of multiple lawsuits and allegations about sex-fueled gatherings and freak-offs and coercion, these discoveries took on a much darker tone. This wasn't just a celebrity home anymore. It was a potential crime scene. The raid didn't happen in a vacuum. It was fueled by the voices of those who had finally come forward. At the center of it all was Cassie Ventura, Diddy's former longtime partner. In her lawsuit, she painted a chilling portrait of life behind closed doors. Cassie alleged that Diddy physically assaulted her, drugged her, and forced her into disturbing sexual encounters with strangers while he watched. These weren't isolated incidents. She described a pattern of control, manipulation, and psychological torment that spanned years. But Cassie wasn't alone. George Cap Kaplan, Diddy's former executive assistant, gave investigators an inside look at the day-to-day operations of Diddy's private world. He described being tasked with cleaning up after parties that devolved into freak-offs, events filled with sex, drugs, and hand-picked guests. According to Kaplan, some of these parties included people who didn't seem to be there by choice. Others involved escorts who were allegedly flown in under suspicious circumstances. Kaplan claimed he kept his mouth shut for years out of fear. But as lawsuits mounted and the federal investigation gained steam, he realized the silence was part of the problem. Their testimonies turned whispers into headlines, and their stories added weight to the mounting evidence behind the raid. To truly understand how Diddy's alleged web of abuse was able to exist for so long, you have to look beyond the headlines and into the psychology behind it. Forensic psychologist Dr. Dawn Hughes, who specializes in trauma and abuse, provided expert testimony in related cases that helped investigators connect the dots. She described how abusers in powerful positions often use a combination of emotional manipulation, financial control, and substance dependence to trap their victims.
And she testified on why people stay in abusive relationships. Now, first starting off, she revealed how much money she makes. She makes about $600 an hour for her work. And when it comes to a day of testimony, she makes $6,000 per day. She testified in other high-profile cases like the defamation trial with Amber Heard and Johnny Depp, singer R. Kelly, and NXIVM founder Keith Raniere. She dug into four main topics: why people stay in these types of relationships.
According to her analysis, victims in these situations frequently normalize the chaos around them because survival becomes more important than escape. In Diddy's case, the mix of luxury, fame, and fear created a toxic environment where boundaries were blurred. Victims were allegedly introduced to drugs not as recreation but as tools of compliance. Some were paid generously, flown to exotic locations, or promised career boosts. Others were isolated and monitored, stripped of support systems, and made dependent on Diddy and his inner circle. It's a psychological cycle. Reward, punish, repeat. Many stayed quiet for years, not because they wanted to, but because they didn't know how to leave. And for some, it took federal agents showing up with search warrants to finally break that cycle. As evidence mounted, the legal system began closing in. Federal prosecutors didn't just raid Diddy's homes on a whim, they were building a case with serious weight behind it. And when the charges dropped, they weren't minor. Diddy now faces a slew of federal accusations, including sex trafficking, racketeering conspiracy, and the illegal transportation of individuals across state lines for the purpose of prostitution. Each charge carries massive legal consequences, and when stacked together, they represent a potential sentence that could stretch decades, if not life. The racketeering charge is particularly devastating. It suggests that Diddy wasn't operating alone, but as the head of a broader organized criminal enterprise. Prosecutors are reportedly looking into his staff, assistants, and even collaborators, anyone who may have helped facilitate or conceal what was going on behind closed doors. Despite pleading not guilty, Diddy remains in custody at the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn. His legal team insists the allegations are false and that he's being targeted due to his fame. But prosecutors argue the opposite, that for years, his fame is precisely what helped shield him from scrutiny. Now that shield is gone, and the courtroom may be the only place left where truth stands a chance. The shockwaves from the Diddy investigation didn't stop at his mansion gates. They spread across the entire entertainment world. Within hours of the raid, headlines dominated social media, and artists who once collaborated with Diddy began distancing themselves. Industry events grew tense.
The victim says maybe they had a bad day at work. Maybe they were intoxicated. It's a way to stay in the relationship, but it increases their risk. It's not a long-term strategy. It gets from one episode to the next.
Behind closed doors, record labels, talent managers, and executives scrambled to review past dealings, contracts, and NDAs tied to Diddy's empire. Even longtime friends and protégés grew noticeably quiet. The sudden retreat was deafening for an industry known for loyalty and silence. Public reaction was even more intense. Fans flooded comment sections demanding accountability not just from Diddy, but from anyone who may have looked the other way. For many, this wasn't just about one man. It was about a system that protects power, hides exploitation behind velvet ropes, and buries truth under glitz and glamour. Conversations about abuse of power, especially within the music industry, were reignited. People started comparing Diddy's case to other high-profile scandals involving celebrities who used wealth and influence to avoid consequences. And while no one has been formally implicated beyond Diddy yet, the investigation is far from over. Because when one domino falls in a tightly guarded circle, others often follow. Despite the damning evidence and explosive testimonies, investigators believe they've only scratched the surface. Sources close to the federal probe suggest that more than just physical evidence was recovered during the raid. There were also hard drives, phones, and encrypted data. And buried in those files could be the names, dates, photos, and communications that tie other high-profile individuals to Diddy's private gatherings. The kind of digital trail that could take this case from personal scandal to full-blown industry reckoning. Some insiders are already whispering about NDAs, payoffs, and threats made to keep people silent. Several former employees have reportedly approached investigators considering deals to testify in exchange for protection or immunity. It's not just about who attended these alleged events. It's about who knew, who enabled it, and who helped make it disappear. The federal team is now combing through years of footage, text messages, and financial records, hoping to trace how far the web actually reaches.
A platform heels, bondage restraints, and bundles of rope. Also photographed as evidence that day, motivational messages on Combs's bathroom mirror that included "You a legend" and "upward motion," and drugs, lots of drugs.
The phrase being used behind closed doors, this goes deep. And if what's on those devices confirms the worst suspicions, then what's already been uncovered in Diddy's mansion may look tame compared to what's still to come. As the dust settles from the federal raid on Diddy's mansion, one thing is clear. This isn't the end of the story. It might not even be the middle. What began as whispers has erupted into a full-blown investigation, one that's pulling back the curtain on decades of alleged abuse, manipulation, and unchecked power in the entertainment industry. For years, Diddy was seen as untouchable, a mogul, a tastemaker, a kingmaker. But now, that legacy is under the harsh light of federal scrutiny, and it's crumbling fast. Each piece of evidence, each testimony, and each charge is another crack in a carefully built empire. The real question now isn't whether Diddy will face consequences, it's how many others will be dragged down with him, because if the rumors about those seized devices and pending subpoenas are true, then the public hasn't seen anything yet. This case could redefine how we view celebrity, power, and silence. It could force an entire industry to confront its demons or expose how far people will go to protect them. Either way, the walls are closing in, and for the first time in a long time, no amount of fame may be enough to escape what's coming.